3 consecutive grand finals, 2 consecutive premierships, and they are every casual fan's favourite team. The Penrith Panthers juggernaut just keeps on rolling on. Biz, how do you feel about this team coming into 2023?
Well, I'd personally love them to fail, but I think they'll be strong again this year. I think they've made a couple of good acquisitions, especially in the second row with Hoskins, Garner, and Peachy, although it's yet to be seen where Peachy will play. I assume he'll be a bit of bench impact this year. A couple of big losses. Obviously, they're losing Koroisau, which will be big for them at number 9. Replacing him with Mitch Kenny and Sonny Luke. Well, quite different types of players, particularly Kenny, more solid around the ruck, really backs his defence, versus Koroisau, he really kneels around. When Fisher Harris and the other guys at the forward pack are dominating, Koroisau is running around. His defence is very different to Kenny's. He'll chop down attackers and put pressure on, whereas Kenny's more the traditional, almost like a Matt Keating style defender.
That's a throwback.
Yeah, that's a throwback. I didn't need to throw that in there. But and I think Garner is a really, really good signing as well. He's one of those players that has been strong in a struggling Tigers team, but he's one of those players that is very high IQ football player. And he's the type of player that go to teams like the Roosters, Storm, Panthers, and really dominate. Very coachable players. So, while they've got, also Kikau, the loss, that's pretty big. But I think when you're substituting Kikau with a player like Garner, you might lose, a lot of offensive firepower, but Garner will give you a lot of structure and a really solid defense. So I think net, they are definitely taking a loss, but I think they're still going to be strong. Their chemistry is good. They're one of the best coach team in the NRL. I can still see them being there right at the top.
Yeah, Garner is super underrated. Everyone thinks because he's at the Tigers, he's not someone to look out for, but his line running, his speed, his ability to break tackles, just exceptional. I do want to look at those losses though, because I'm hearing a lot of people saying the Penrith Panthers will come back this year and they're going to be the same team. They've got the same system. They've got the same coach. They've got Cleary. They've got Luai. They've got Edwards. They've got that forward pack. Fisher Harris, one of the best in the game. I don't think it's that simple. And I've just done a bit of looking around in the stats. The average NRL team, refer to some notes here, has 2 players in the top 36 for try assists. Penrith last year had 5. Now that was their potency. They've just got so much attack across the field. Of those 5 players, they lost 3 of them. So a couple of names there that you expect. Koroisau, Kikau. The other one there is O'Sullivan, actually, who was right up there.
He was a great fill-in.
And now you look at that even. O'Sullivan going. The other backup halves have gone as well. So Falls has gone. Katoa's gone too. Depth at half. A little bit out there. It'll be tough during Origin for them to maintain a bit of a team there. But if we look into that more deeply, Penrith had the second best attack in the comp last year, so 636 points scored. Koroisau and Kikau combined for 22 try assists, 14 tries. Huge number of stats there. Now, statistically, we bring Garner and Kenny in. I don't mind those guys. I like Garner more than I like Kenny. Let's say they're 50% as good. That's about 100 points off the board, and that means their second best attack in the comp goes to 7th best. So, even if they're good players, even if they're effective fill-ins, this juggernaut becomes a little weaker. Still a great defense, but I question their attack and creativity coming into this year.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If we offset the attack, they still keep the elite defense, arguably a better defense. I would think that Kenny is a stronger defender than Koroisau, and Garner arguably a stronger defender than Kikau. If they maintain that level of defensive intensity, and they can, you talk about players getting a move on, getting some momentum through attack, they actually create momentum through their defense. I mean, if you take out 100 points of attack, what's their plus-minus differential? It's still probably dominating most teams. I definitely agree with you. But I actually just think they'll play a different type of football this year. They did have a lot of attack going through Kikau's side last year. I think they're going to adapt. And they've still got a lot of strike power around the park. So I think someone can step up. And the way Penrith plays, it's really the cliche next man steps up, because you talked about it before. They don't have the depth in the halves, but last year Sullivan came in and he was one of the best halves for the first half of the competition. Kurt Falls came in. He led them to good wins against good opposition. They've just got such a nursery out there that they can pick up players or put in their reserves, and Last year, they won the reserves comp, the juniors comp. So it's not like they're struggling for depth. So it'll actually be really interesting to see those kind of guys step up. They've lost a couple of good junior players, like Hopgood. We'll talk about that more in the Eels preview. But yeah, I think they'll still be sharp. Will they be clear-cut minor premier level? Probably not. But I mean, yeah, speaking about that, like, what do you see as their biggest strengths and weaknesses this year?
The strength is still the same as it always has been. It's that suffocating middle forward pack. So you've got Isaiah Yeo, who's just the most mobile defender in the comp. You've got Fisher Harris, who is terrifying and featured in our top 10 scariest players. And you've got Leota, who is the most requested, commented player in that scariest top 10 as well. So it's just a middle you don't want to run at. Kenny helps that. They'll have a rotation with Sonny Luke there too. I think that combined with the kicking game of Cleary and just the aggressive running game of Luai, and then you throw in, the running game of their back three, Edwards, and two wingers there as well. They're just monsters. Like, they're a really physical team. They can really suffocate teams. They can kick you to death. You just have to keep them below 20 points. And then it's a challenge to get above 20 points against them. So you have to play their style to beat them. You can't blow Penrith out 30 to 26, whereas every other team in the comp can be beaten that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, another thing you touched on, I mean, you speak about their strengths. I'd actually, some of the strengths last year, players like Edwards had career years. Yeah. Kenny backed that up. I mean, he's been solid for them over many years, but I think last year was the first time people have spoken about him in that top 3, top 5 space. He's traditionally been just a hard-working, high IQ player. Again, that was his motto last year, but you saw a lot more explosion coming through as well. So can he keep that up? Can he take another step? Because like we spoke about, Koroisau is a huge focal point of attack for them, and now they've lost him. So will the 7, 6, and 1, can they progress further? Or even if they stay the same as last year, does that have the same level of potency without the number 9? As we know, number 9s are crucial. All the good teams have great number 9s. And Koroisau overtook Cook last year for the number 9 spot for the Blues. So, yeah, I think that one of their weaknesses will be the motivation. And you talked about 2 premierships in a row, could have been 3. It's difficult to keep getting up. Most of these players have won rings. They've played for Australia. They've played for Origin. They've played for their countries. So it's really hard to just motivate. And I think there's some of these fringe teams who have gone a few years. They've been around at 4, 5. They'll be more motivated and hungry come that time of year. And I think that's going to be their biggest weakness. But yeah, going into this year, I mean, what's your biggest question for them?
It's the creativity. We talked about the try-assists, but part of that question is answered by Tyrone Peachey. And I just think, everyone's very quick to jump on Tyrone Peachey as a nothing signing. But just think about the good years Tyrone Peachey had. Think about how effective he was at Penrith when he started out, and how effective he has been through chapters at teams like the Titans as well. He can come on in the middle. He can come on almost as a hooker. You could bring him on outside backs. Like, you just bring him on as a spark plug, the way Dylan Walker.
Yeah.
Dylan Walker, yeah. Dylan Walker was being played at Manly. So I think Tyrone Peachey's going to add a bunch of spark, but I still think the question for them is that creativity and whether they can crack those really tight games. How about you? What have you got?
Yeah, I think the biggest question for me is just, the motivation. I think you're right. Tyrone Peachey and those sorts of guys, there'll be a lot of creativity coming through. And every signing that Penrith has, made in the last few years, they've come and performed. I mean, look at guys like Sorensen, who came from the Sharks, solid play. Last year, he went gangbusters. He was breaking tackles. He was looking like an elite second rower, playing in the middle as well. I have no doubt Peachey will have a good role this year, or a solid role, and he'll play very well. I think he'll play about the 40 minute mark off the bench, as you mentioned, in a variety of positions. But I think if they can stay motivated, the coach can keep them on. I've got them in the top 3 again, probably falling at the prelims.
Ooh, big call.
But yeah, I still have them right up there.
Wow.
I hate to admit that though, but I got them in, probably
falling in the prelims though.
Yeah. I just think, like I spoke about, they'll be solid all year, but someone, a young, hungry team who haven't had success in the last couple of years will just get over the top, week 3 of the finals.
I thought that was going to happen too this year when Parramatta placed them in the grand final, and their intensity was unmatched, Penrith. So I've also got them falling in the prelims. I think it's a bigger fall on the ladder though. I think they're in that 5th to 6th conversation. I've also got Parramatta in that conversation too. Both teams have just lost so much depth. And I think Penrith, you lose Cleary for 5 weeks this year. Who comes in for him? They've got a lot of gun young juniors, but who's coming in? They lose a hooker, who's coming in? They lose a forward. They've just lost a lot of talent across the team, and through Origin they're going to struggle. and if there are injuries, they'll struggle. But they're still a top tier team if the 1 to 17 is there. So I've got prelims 5th to 6th conversation. I think it's a big slide, and that's unpopular having them outside the top 4.
I like that.
Yeah, no, look, I respect them. They're a juggernaut, but I think it's coming to a bit of a close unless they can do something drastic.
Yeah, look, I can see that happening, but I just, just with the nursery and the reserves being so dominant, I can just see some players that we just, don't know of, or players that are, not as popular names coming in and stepping up. So they'll definitely be in the heat. I don't think anyone's questioning that, but it's good to hear someone thinks that they're not going to be up the top.
Yeah,
It'd be nice to see a non-Penrith involved grand final this year.
It's bold. We haven't seen it in a while. If there are any rookies that we've missed out on here and you know about them, let us know in the comments. We'll make sure to look into them. There's probably a bunch of talented guys in those comp-winning junior teams that are coming through. That
Absolutely.
So, let us know in the comments where you think Penrith are going to finish, and join us for the next preview. See us.